What could possibly go wrong? Hello and welcome to part 8 of the Lockdown Getaway, short stories from the adventures of a blind man. By December of 2015, I had been stand-up paddleboarding or SUPing for a little over 18 months. During that time, I had done some great SUP challenges being guided by my good friend Carl. But now I felt it was time to see what I could do on my own, without a sighted guide. Now SUP can be done on the sea, down rivers and canals, or on lakes and lochs. A blind guy on the sea on his own is a recipe for disaster. Rivers and canals have their own blind hazards such as rocks, shallows and overhanging branches. This left me with lakes and lochs. At 41 kilometres long, Loch is the UK's longest freshwater loch or lake. I knew that it had a prevailing wind from the south and also that nobody had ever supped the full length of it before. So this would make my perfect first big solo SUP challenge. From previous visits to the area, I knew that at the north end of the loch sat Kilchurn Castle. To the right of the castle was a wee sheltered bay, and to the left was an inlet with the river flowing underneath a low railway bridge. I reckoned the castle should be easy enough to spot, and so long as I stuck to the right-hand side of it, everything should be fine. What could possibly go wrong? My wife Rona and I booked a week's holiday on the shores of Loch in early December of 2015. This just happened to be the same week that Storm Desmond hit Scotland, causing some major flooding in the area. There was due to be a break in the storm between 7 a.m. and 3 p.m. on the 8th, so that's when I would attempt my paddle. At 8 a.m, I launched my board from Torrin Bay and started the paddle in the dark. Dawn was just starting to break, so I could just about make out a rough outline of where I was heading. Now, when I'm supping on a loch, all I really see are 3 layers around me. The bottom layer is white, and this is the water on which I'm paddling. The middle layer is dark, and this is the land that surrounds the loch. And the top layer, in Scotland, tends to be grey. The end of the loch can be spotted by looking up the loch and following the mountains from either side and seeing where they come down and naturally meet to create a V shape. This V shape is my sweet spot, and hopefully the end of the loch. As I left Torrin Bay, dawn was breaking and my sweet spot came into view. My plan had been to paddle up the east shore of Loch, hopefully avoiding an arm that peels off to the west just before you get to the top of the loch. However, as I entered Loch from the southwest corner, the wind was blowing an absolute hoolie from the southeast. This meant that I spent the first hour paddling almost exclusively on my left-hand side, just trying to get across the loch. Although I was on the water on my own, Rona was following my progress from the shore. She had found several spots where she could park up and look out for me. She knew my expected speed, so could work out roughly when I was due to pass her. I had no idea where these lookout spots were because I had no intention of getting off my board until I hit the north shore. Once I'd got across the loch, I then hugged the east shore and headed north, until my progress was halted by a fence. The flooding in the area had been so severe that I had just paddled out of the loch and into a field, and over the barbed wire fence that surrounded it. Now, as I paddle an inflatable board, I very carefully backtracked my way back out onto the loch, and from here on in, I'd be keeping a bit of distance between me and the shoreline. At around 1 p.m, as forecasted, a sleet and hailstorm arrived. Apart from stinging my exposed face and hands, it also dropped visibility to virtually nil, and I could no longer see my sweet spot. The storm also whipped up some massive waves, which forced me to kneel down and paddle for the next 10 minutes. Once the sleet and the hail had passed, a steady, misty drizzle remained. About 20 minutes later, I spotted a big dark lump ahead. I recognised this as Kilchurn Castle, so I went over to the right of it and paddled down there, knowing that I had less than a kilometre to go. Sure enough, 5 minutes later, I spotted the end of the loch and the end of my challenge, just a few metres ahead of my board. The storm had picked back up again, so at this point I knelt back down so I could gently guide myself into the bay. All of a sudden, this massive wave picked both me and my board up and launched us into the end of the bay. But instead of landing on the long, soft grass that I was expecting to see there, both me and my inflatable board landed in a massive thorn bush. I leapt off my board and into the water and tried to extricate myself and my board from this wall of thorns. But the wind and the wave behind were having none of it. Instead, I had to battle my way through the thorns and onto the beach. Once on the beach, I could see a steep embankment in front of me. On top of that embankment, I knew was a railway track. On the other side of that railway track, I knew was a car park. And in that car park, I hoped, would be Rona waiting for me with some dry clothes and a hot drink. I clambered up that leaf-covered, wet and slippy embankment to find no railway track. What the? I looked around me and all I could see were trees. Now, Rona and I had a cheap set of walkie-talkies with us, and these were only to be used in case of emergency. After 10 minutes of scrambling around, looking for the railway track, and failing to find it, I thought I'd better give Rona a call. So I called her up, and I told her that I thought I was at the end of the loch and at the end of the bay, but that somebody had stolen the railway track. The signal was weak, and it was hard to hear what Rona was saying in reply, but I think she was saying that she was stood at the end of the loch and she hadn't seen me go past. I replied and I told her that maybe I wasn't where I thought I was and that maybe I was lost. The only word that Rona heard clearly from that transmission was lost. I clambered back down to the beach, grabbed my board and made my way back out onto the loch. I decided that I was going to paddle back up to the castle where I could regain my bearings. However, the wind and the waves were blowing like I don't know what. The storm was on full force and there was no possible way that I could stand up on my board. So I knelt down and paddled hard. Now, the castle was only a few hundred metres away from me, and this should only take, probably less than 5 minutes to get there. As I was paddling, I could hear Rona's voice coming over the walkie-talkie, but there was no way I could stop paddling to respond to her, because if I did, I would just be washed straight back into that wall of thorns behind me. So I kept my head down and I paddled hard. After 10 minutes of hard paddling, I had covered less than 50 metres. I needed a new plan. So I decided what I would do now was I would turn right and I would paddle over the peninsula where the castle sits upon, as this was completely underwater. Just as I reached the far side of the peninsula, the storm blew itself out. The wind, the hail and the sleet all stopped and the water went super calm. As I reached the far side, I turned right and expected to see the low railway bridge and the river flowing towards me. But I didn't. All I could see was more Loch. I obviously wasn't where I thought I was. How much further did I have to go, I thought. Then it dawned on me. These cheap walkie-talkie radios that Rona and I were using had a maximum range of 3 kilometres, and that was when you had clear sight between us. So this meant we were obviously less than 3k apart. Sure enough, 10 minutes later, Rona spotted me off in the distance, and 20 minutes after that, I paddled into the correct bay. This 41-kilometre paddle had taken me 6.5 hours to complete, and I had done it in the most horrendous weather I had ever supped in. But I had done it all on my own, and I was one very happy paddler. Thanks for watching. I will be posting more Lockdown Getaways every Monday and Friday for the next few weeks. So stay safe, and if you want to find out more about my adventures, go to extremedreams.co.uk. My public speaking, dean-talks.com. Follow me at Twitter at dean_talks. On Facebook, Dean Dunbar Blind and Dangerous. And if you want to see any more of my videos, go to my YouTube channel, DinoD69. Thank you.